Hello, everyone. I wish you all a very good morning, good afternoon, and a good evening from where you're joining us today. I am Pooja Pandey, here today with my colleague Judith Kirschner. We are early stage researchers at CERIDES in European University, Cyprus. We are associated with Pyrolife, which is a global initiative for training and research in integrated wildfire management. The vision of Pyrolife is to learn across disciplines, regions, and practices, and to connect science and practitioners to move from short-term reactive wildfire suppression to a status where society is able to live with fires. Pyrolife is funded by Marie Curie, Action, and Horizon 2020. Today, on this prestigious day that celebrates researchers spread all over the continent, we are so happy to present our ideas and views on the status of wildfires and their management strategies. We're also going to learn some of the basics of what sets wildfires and how the climate crisis is affecting wildfires. Later on, the role of wildfires in the ecosystem will be discussed. And with the rapid session, we're going to discuss the wildfire research at EUC, and finally, some of the basic steps that can make our life easier to live with fires. So, before knowing about management and prevention, we must know what wildfires are. Wildfires, in the simplest term, can be explained as destructive fires that very quickly spread over woodland and brush. But it is not just that. It is a complex phenomenon, as the extent to which a fire spreads depend on conditions in the ecosystem. For example, how much moisture is there in the ground and in the air? Or what are the fuel types? If it is dry or has it been raining? With these questions, we wonder if and how climate is affecting wildfires. In a presentation, I heard Jonathan Watts explaining that we have already had more than 1 degree Celsius warming since the industrial era, which is a result of human emissions like exhaust fumes, industrial releases from chimneys, and deforestation. And when these gases from all these activities are released into the sphere, and that is then masked in the planet, and everything below that wheel heats up. The biggest example is the increased heat wave, long summer and even colder winters. We are seeing the water cycle change, and we are seeing the land dry out more frequently. This is kind of reinforcing climate feedback mechanism, because as more fire burns, more fuels, and thus they release more carbon into the atmosphere, which means more global heating, which relates back to more fires. Now, I'll pass it over to Judith so that she can explain a bit more about fires in the ecosystem more briefly. So over to you now.
Thank you, Pooja, for explaining how fire regimes feed back into climate warming. I'm sure everyone who is listening right now has heard about this year's fire season, with large fires here in Cyprus, in Greece, and other countries. Those fires can be a threat to human life and properties. But natural fires occurred already millions of years before there was humans, ignited by lightnings or volcanoes. This is what we can learn from fire ecology, how many ecosystems evolved with regular burning, and plants adapted to or are even dependent on specific fire regimes. On those pictures, I selected a few examples of plants that adapted to frequent burning. On the left, you see the heathlands. In some areas of northwestern Europe, we know that humans managed heathlands with fire since many thousands of years. This has stimulated an evolutionary response in Calluna vulgaris populations, where seed germination is stimulated by smoke exposure leading to increased seedling recruitment after fire. On the second picture, you can see a ponderosa pine forest in the western United States. Many pine species have a thick bark which isolates the tree from heat. Some of them drop lower branches to prevent low-intensity surface fires from climbing up into the crown, and they have an extensive root system that allows quick resprouting after fire. In ecosystems with hotter, fast-moving fires, some pine species develop cones that are glued shut with strong resin. Once a fire moves through, the resin melts and the seeds get distributed. On the next picture, you can see a eucalypt plantation in Portugal. Eucalyptus originally comes from fire-prone habitats in Australia. It has oils in the leaves that make fire more severe and releases its seed after fire. Today, you can find eucalyptus plantations for fuel wood or the paper industry in many countries all over the world, and it is really important to consider the fire risk in their management. And this brings us back to the topic of considering fire risk in fire-adapted landscapes like the Mediterranean.
Thanks, Judith. That was some really great explanations there. So moving forward, discussing the preventive measures now. In my opinion, I think everyone should worry about their own safety. We should not depend on somebody else to make us plans and guide us through. Of course, there should be some guidance, but one should be prepared ourselves. So what can we do to achieve that? Let's see. We don't have to go out of the box, but just think about more natural defenses that can protect us and our homes, at least nothing but minimize the impacts, because plantations and monocultures are much more vulnerable to fires. So we need to think about what we plant so that the nature has, a chance of defending itself. And at the same time, the best and the biggest thing we can do is reduce carbon emissions. If nothing, this buys us more time to look for solutions and spread out the impact. Other than this, we can be prepared to make our homes fire smart by using fire safety materials. Having an evacuation plan ready with us, and also follow tips and important information. Keep in touch with one another, your neighbors. It's really going to help, because sometimes you may know things that they might not know, and vice versa. Second is use your voice. I mean, it doesn't mean that we have to grab a speaker and start shouting, but keep ourselves updated regularly by getting in touch with the elected officials to discuss climate mitigation and adaptive policy, and learn ways to communicate it to wider audiences. Next up is community building. So all we need to do is seek new information and stretch our own skills by talking about climate change and fire risk with our neighbors, or whatever risk you're dealing with in your area. We must share information about what we know, and at the same time be a good listener, and discuss action plans to be taken in the event of a fire near you. I think these are like the basic steps that we can follow to protect ourselves. Because, even a small bit of effort can make a difference in protecting our own life and our own planet. And with this, I will stop here. Thank you very much for listening. And I will pass it over to Judith for her final words.
Thank you, Pooja, and thanks to everyone who joined us today. We are happy about sharing the work we do and hope you enjoyed this small insight. If you have any questions or ideas about our work, please send us a message to the email address you can see here. With this, we are coming to the end. Thank you for joining us and for your interest.